I don't know if I could write a book. I guess I could. Maybe it'd be like a short children's story. But I have had a lot of interesting experiences. And yes, I'm kind of niched. And that's why I think today is going to be, I think it's actually a first for us here on Jobtopia. I don't think I've actually interviewed a business leader, CEO who also has a book. But it's very relevant to us in the business world because there's such a change happening. It's been coming. Okay, it's the rise of the independent worker, and we're going to get into this a little bit more today and how it affects enterprises and how it can affect you, the independent worker. Miles, good to see you again, my man.
Hey, great to see you, Tony. Happy to be here.
Are you ready to do this?
Let's give it a go.
Okay, so can you look at your camera?
Yes.
There you go. Now you're looking at me.
Okay, got it. Great.
In this world of like multi-camera, multi-screens, everyone gets all turned around. I don't want you turned around for this one. Not today, Miles. Listen, before we get started, I have to say, I did read your book. Thank you very much. Free Birds.
Awesome.
We're going to get into this. I'm kind of fascinated with mountain climbers. There was a great book out called No Shortcuts to the Top. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I noticed you have done something a little crazy. You went up to Mount Kilimanjaro. What was that? What was that like? What was that experience for you?
Yeah, so I did it for my 50th birthday. That was the motivation for me to do it. And I wanted to climb a mountain because I've kind of always had that itch, if you will, inside of me. And so Kilimanjaro is kind of like a non-technical mountain climb or hike. It gets over 19,000 feet, so you're up there elevation-wise. But I just had to train for it, keep training and training and training. And my son and I, with another one of his buddies and his dad, we decided to go do it. So 8-day trip, 6 up, 2 down. It was fantastic, actually.
Were there ever times when you're like, screw it. Why are we out here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, especially on the night of the summit. Because you depart roughly around midnight. And you go up, and it is cold, cold, cold. I mean,
yeah, because you want to get up there early so you have plenty of time to get down and see everything. Yeah,
you want to be there for
classic.
sunrise.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. I'm glad I did it. I'd maybe do it again. I don't feel compelled to. I'd probably go somewhere else, to be honest. Right?
Yeah, you've already done it. Well, now maybe now. Listen, don't do Everest. I mean, that is literally on everyone's bucket list. It's kind of cliche now. If you've seen on Twitter, like it's like a traffic jam to go. I mean, it's like, it's not almost like not out in nature now. You just feel like you're just in a traffic jam. You go all the way over to Nepal, India, and then now you're, in this huge traffic jam. So it seems kind of ironic.
Yeah, well, you can kind of even tell from the book Free Birds. I'm not exactly go with the masses kind of mindset.
You are not a go with the flow kind of guy. You are definitely not a go with the flow kind of guy. So you had a long career at PwC.
Yeah.
At what point, when you were leading the one of the global consulting practices, did you decide, or did the epiphany come that this was, forming MBO partners was really the next evolution for you? When did that occur?
I don't think it was one episodic moment in time. What happened is it would have been around circa 2012. I was looking at how we thought about getting access to the best talent on the planet. And obviously, PwC has a super great brand and can attract lots of great people as full-time consultants. But it certainly I became aware of the idea that there's talent that decides that they don't want to be a full-time employee for all kinds of different reasons. It's not good or bad, it just is, right? And so we launched what's called the PwC Talent Exchange so that we could get access to more talent. And that was 2012, and then it was about 2018 when I decided to leave PwC and go to MBO. I got to MBO in the middle of 2019, but I did that because I'd kind of run my course, so to speak, at PwC in terms of built lots of great businesses there under the consulting and advisory brand, awesome team of people. And you just kind of sit back and you say, well, what's next? What am I going to go do? And MBO was the back end engine to this thing we call Talent Exchange. And so I got together with the founder of MBO. His name's Gene Zano. And he said, why don't you just come and do what you did over there and like help all kinds of independents go live the life they want to live. And so I got that itch, if you will, from Gene about help other people build their own small solo entrepreneur businesses so they can do the work they love on the terms that they like. So that's what got me going, man. That's it. So I love it.
Well, if no one has ever run their own business or been an independent, it can be kind of a scary thing because, like when I used to place accountants at all levels, they would kind of joke and say, "Man, I would love to be like an independent," but they're an accountant, and the thought
Right.
of going out and getting business was always kind of like terrifying to them. So I'm curious, before we kind of jump into Freebirds, which by the way, I gotta say, I love all the references to the bands and the songs. Like I literally still have certain songs running through my head. Of course, Freebird.
Right.
I can't get that solo now out of my head.
So
I need to.
you want to hear the story about how that happened? I got it. It's a good one. So I wrote the book more like from a business perspective, and I was about halfway, a third of the way through it. And my partner, I asked her to read it because she's an author and she does memoirs and stuff. And so I asked her to take a read of it. She goes, "Miles, this thing's really boring, man. Like, I don't know why anybody would read this." And of course, I'm like, "Well, so what would you do? Like, what?" She goes, "Like, like put some rock and roll or something in it." Like, and then that's what got me going. I said, "We're going to name it after rock and roll, mostly rock and roll songs, each chapter. And Free Birds is like, the Leonard Skinner song is obviously very in the spirit of kind of what I stand for and think about. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how that happened is we've, and I think it worked, I'm biased, right? Because I'm the author, but I think it worked to add a little bit of, human interest into this, not just hard facts about what's happening with the workforce. So anyway, that's how we got there.
Well, what I would say too is that the book, and the stories of the bands and like the stories kind of behind some of the songs kind of parallels what was happening in business, kind of parallels what happens in your own personal life and how we kind of interweave things that happen in our life. And, there's this, momentum that's happening now with independence, right? With obviously the technological boom, the barriers are very low, the costs are very low. It's just really opening things up for people. And it's makes it for, that was funny you said that. It's not a boring read. I thought, oh God, gotta have to plow through a business book. I was like, can I throw this into Grok and have it just tell me?
Right.
And I didn't have to, Miles. So, good job on that.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. Like it.
So, where do we want to start with this? Because there's quite a bit here. Why don't we take it from the enterprise standpoint? Okay,
Yeah.
you're with MBO Partners. Tell us about the platform. What this platform is enabling corporations to do, and what the solution is that maybe they didn't know they had a problem that they had.
Yeah. So it's interesting the way that in order to use an independent professional, you obviously have to make sure you get a good match on the skills and the capabilities. We can do that on the platform. So if somebody says, I need somebody that can do this type of work, have these types of skills, we can do that. But once you get past that, if you're going to use independence at scale, I mean, you have to do it even for one, but it really matters if you're doing it at scale. You have to do it in a compliant way. And the regulations around do you classify somebody as a 1099 contractor, or do they need to be treated like a W-2 employee? It's a quagmire because there's federal rules and then there's state rules, and the state rules interpret and apply the federal rules. And so it's extremely complex if you're a big company. Well, at MBO, we figured all that out, okay, like how you comply with all those laws and regulations, so that we take the friction out of how difficult it can be for a company to use independent contractors. We just knock that friction down. And I really differentiate between somebody who chooses to be an independent running their own business versus somebody who's just looking for another form of work between their full-time employment, where they desire really to be a full-time employment. We're
Right.
targeting the people that say, I want to be my own boss. I want to like really focus on what I do. I don't want to deal with unnecessary administration, whether it's in a job or in my business. So we do a lot of the administration for them in their business, so they can spend their time working on the stuff they love to do.
So I'm curious, Miles, are you really serving both sides of the marketplace?
But we definitely are. Yeah.
Okay,
And
interesting,
so,
because I just had another podcast on the marketplace business model, and this was being done in the trucking industry. It's kind of interesting. I've had a couple on now that they've developed a business that is really kind of working on both sides. Um, let's kind of continue on some of the benefits for the employer, because the enterprise, you did say there are some legal and some tax issues, obviously, that are
yeah.
being diverted. There's issues like, can you direct, like if you direct an employee too much, then they're going to be considered a W-2, and then there's tax implications, and there's all kinds of other benefit, complications that come with that. So you've
Right.
just really leveled the playing field and said you can use these independents, and they can be classified as what, 1099?
Right. So if everything's structured right, but on the part of the independent, like they have to do certain things to qualify as a business, right? And then the way the work arrangement or the statement of work is structured has to be done in a specific way and then executed in the way that they qualify as a 1099 contractor. So at MBO, we really target that white collar, high end professional, because the more somebody gets paid for the work they do, the more likely it is they're not being directed by somebody. And
Right.
so there's the
Because of the
business
level of
model.
expertise, they wouldn't have the ability to tell the CISA or the CFO, for example,
Exactly.
CTO. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. But for the enterprise, they want access to make it easy to bring people in when, like, kind of right people, right time, right price, right? Like, can they do that easily? And our platform helps you do that for the enterprise
Hmm.
perspective, right?
And I
Um,
guess to your point earlier with scale, I mean, this is enabling a little more scale rather than just a one-off. I mean, maybe there's a ramp-up period where a company gets to discover and learn how easy it is to do this, but I would imagine this platform is better for scale. Like, we're bringing on a new project. Okay, let's bring the people in like you would have been doing at PwC.
that's right. It is made for companies that want to scale. And when I say scale, I nowhere do we ever say that we think we're going to eliminate the need for full-time W-2 employees. That'd be silly, right? But can 30-40% of your workforce be comprised of independents that work for you 6 months a year, or 9 months, or two? They could work for a couple of years and then go away for a few years. Absolutely. Um, in the United States today, if the average employee only stays with a company for less than 4 years. I mean, my question is, who thinks they have a permanent workforce? Nobody does. Those
Yeah,
years are gone.
yeah, yeah. I think you brought this up in the book pretty well. I think you called it the social contract has been
Yeah.
pretty much eliminated. You want to kind of expound on what's happened
Yeah.
there, and maybe
So
why? Like, why has this happened?
so when I think of the social contract, I think of it as the relationship, both behavioral and economic relationship, between a worker and people that need work done, or companies, right? And so the social contract in the United States has been geared towards the worker always being a W-2 employee. So I'm going to just start from World War II and kind of walk our way forward. Okay. We come out of World War II in the mid 40s, and what happens is we kind of industrialize America. Lots of industrial jobs. Husband, or the man of the house, goes to work, works for a company that has a full-time job, has defined benefit plan. You work your 30 years, get the gold watch, get the benefit, the defined benefit plan, and that's the way it works. And then in the late 60s, we started to see the emergence of more dual income families. So both husband and wife are working. And I boil this down to basic needs of food, water, shelter at the most minimal level, and then keeping up with the Joneses at the other. But how much cash flow can the household generate? So they generate more cash flow by having two people work instead of one. That kind of runs its course for about another 20 years into the mid 80s. And then you still got to need more cash to kind of keep doing those hierarchy of needs. And then the financial industry invented securitizations and made money cheap and very accessible. So these things called mortgage-backed securities, which fractionalized the home housing market in the United States, made it possible for people to generate cash flow by taking out loans on their homes in excess of what they purchased their home for, i.e. home equity loans. So that then gave them cash flow to operate even more. And by this time, we started to see a fracturing of these defined benefit plans. It's really originated back in the mid 40s. And what I mean by that is in the United States in 1980, if you worked for a private company, 2/3 of those employees had a defined benefit plan. Today, that's less than 10%. Corporate America broke the promise. Come and work for me, stay with me forever, and I will financially take care of you and your family for life. That's over. Okay.
I mean, that was my grandfather's generation. I mean, I
Right.
remember when he worked. I mean, I literally have a plaque somewhere. I think he was literally 50. I don't remember how many years he worked for this company. I mean, maybe not 50 years, maybe 40, 45. Same company. And when he retired, he had a pension, and they gave him a brand new car.
Yeah. And that's the way it was. But that I don't think that model was ever really economically viable, which is why I say it broke the promise. They kind of had to, because you couldn't economically structure it forever this way. But
like the pensions,
right? It doesn't. It's really hard to make that work. Like you basically say you work for 25 years, but I'll pay you for 50. Well, at some point, one of my favorite sayings is the easiest way to make money is in Excel, and that's a great example of it. They model things they think will work, but it doesn't play out that way.
And that happened to Delta. That's why Delta was forced to push early retirement and kind of get rid of those long, very, very expensive pension plans. It's happened across multiple industries, but being in Atlanta, I remember that was a big deal. Yeah. One of my good friends was a pilot, and he was forced into early retirement, and they live for that pension. It's huge, like you say, and we still see them in the teachers union. We see them in Congress. It does seem like it's upside down.
So think about what you just said. You see them mostly in public entities. Private companies can't afford to do it. That's why they got rid of them.
Makes sense.
And so what happens if you stay on this journey is by the time, so people are using debt to support their lifestyle. And then by 2007, 2008, that tranche of cash flow kind of started to get tapped out. That's when we had the big pullback on home equity values and, on home values and equity values, and things got tightened up. But it was in the early 2000s, you started to see the emergence of more and more people choosing to do independent contracting as side gigs. They were full-time employees in many cases doing side gigs. And we're just about 15, 20 years into that right now, and I think it'll run for another 10 or 20 years. When I say run, once you start doing a side gig, you do one, then you do two, you do three, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I can make a really nice living by being an independent professional running my own business. And so I think, it's just a natural evolution that it goes beyond just labor rules. It goes to how people want to live and run their life. And so my call for the change in the social contract is let the individual choose the commercial terms and arrangements that they want to contract under to do their work, and not have that dictated by law and assume that everybody has to fit in the same box of being a W-2 employee.
You know, you really kind of forced me, and I haven't really completed all the exercises in the book, but you really, and it makes perfect sense. You really hit on the fact that your independents, they are going to really specialize, and they should be specializing, inch wide, mile deep. And I've interviewed many people like that, and they kind of joke, that they don't have a breadth of knowledge, that they're brought in for something very, very specialized and unique. And I think anyone who reads this book should kind of take to heart, like, what is it that I do really well? What is it that I'm exceptional at? Because I truly believe everyone has a unique talent. Now, you might not have as many talents as someone else.
Right.
If we want to talk biblically, I mean, some was given one talent, some five, some 10. But the axiom there was use the talent that you have,
That's right.
maximize it.
That's exactly right. And that's what being an independent professional allows you to do, is to, and hopefully you also enjoy that. Right? Like, I think that's a really kind of key
That's a
ingredient, right?
kind of unique point, right? Like,
Right.
if you hate what you do,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, you brought up a good point, because how often when you work for a large company are you given maybe on your plate? Like for me, you get into leadership, you get into management, you have multiple areas that you're managing, but maybe there's one area that you really love, but you're only able to do it 20, 25% of the time. Like, what if you could just do it all the time? Your quality of life, your mental health, everything just.
I mean, all of our data, we know that the successful independent contractors on our platform, they're happier, healthier, and more financially secure than they were as a full-time employee. They say that. That's not me saying it. That's what they're saying. It's over 2/3, almost 80% in some cases, believe that. So,
Tell me about the platform as it relates to the independent. What is it that they gain by being part of this network?
yeah. So the one thing they gain, and it's a really important component, which is they get deal flow, or in other words, where's my next project coming from? Most independents that are operating a business, not all, but most of them, one of their biggest concerns is, where's my next project? Because they're working on one project, busy, etc. And that's going to have a set end date at some point, and they need more work. So by being on the platform with MBO, we have liquidity in the market, right? Because we have enterprises that are looking for people. So that's one. But the other is, you have to do things that are required in order for you to qualify as an independent. You have
Such as?
you have to have capital at risk. So, have you invested in marketing? Do you have a website? Um, do you have the right proper insurances? So all that stuff, they can come to us, and we provide that to them either directly or through our partners that do that work for them. Okay, and so we make it easier for them to be an independent, and we give them access to deal flow they otherwise couldn't get access to. If you're an independent trying to break into a company to get deal flow is really difficult, because understandably, companies are like, well, you're not a qualified vendor. Whereas with us, they're a qualified vendor because they're sitting on our platform, and we have contracts with the big enterprises to go provide them people. So,
I'm curious, because you are taking one of the big risks away from the independent, and that is deal flow. Are there particular industries that you're most that are most welcoming to this idea, or
I
parts of the
don't,
country? I'm just kind of curious what trends you see there.
yeah, I don't necessarily think it's particular industries, with the exception of, I will say that the large tech companies have one of the largest shares of independent contractors compared to other industries. They have very large share of their
Yeah, but that
workforce, I'm
that would
saying.
be I would definitely see that.
Yeah. Um, and partly because they can define skills and projects very more clearly. So it's easier to say, here's your project, go do this, be done with it, and move on to the next one, right? So I think of that as the ability to have a recomposable workforce where you can go run a project that's done, disassemble that team and reconfigure a new team for another project. And then, so the other thing I would say is it kind of, the nature of the people depends on what's happening in the economy. So in a high growth economy, you have people that are in higher demand that can be doing big transformation projects, whether technology, change management, et cetera, executive coaching, that type of stuff. In a tighter economy, you have more people that are suited for doing remediation work, litigation support type work, et cetera, because things are, you're getting more regulatory work in those kind of environments. So it depends. It's kind of driven by what's happening in the broader economy.
So put on your prescience hat. What period are we entering into now? We're, you know,
Yeah.
podcasts are going to be out there for a while. So, I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, but we're in the middle of, early part of 2025. There's, kind of economic turmoil. There's tariffs. There's all kinds. What
So,
period do you think we're entering
so,
for
so I think,
independence?
for independence, I think we are in, first from a broad economy perspective and markets perspective, we have a high level of uncertainty right now in the market. And as a general statement, in times of uncertainty, most people and companies will choose to do nothing until they can see some sense of stability coming. Okay. So the decisions to do projects slows down. Okay. I do think that will pass here in the next, I'm going to say 6 months or so. We'll see that pass, and we will see more stability and certainty of what's going to happen in the economy. And as you see that, you'll see investment dollars free up and growth will start to come back in a more aggressive way. And we'll see growth certainly in 26, but I think we'll see growth in the fourth quarter of 25 for independence.
Now, I know because you've said you specialize in more of the higher end kind of white collar work, so this may not apply, but it would seem that in a period of uncertainty, it's beneficial to have more independence because you can scale up, scale down more quickly. It's very difficult to off ramp W-2s. It's very expensive.
That's right. So what we normally see is on the backside of a period of uncertainty, the more permanent piece of the workforce that's independent goes up every time. Okay, so people go through this and they're like, you know what, that last time didn't feel so good. When I say people, companies go through, it didn't feel so good when we had to lay off as many people as we did. So we're not going to hire as many back full time. We're going to be better at using independence so that we can flex up and down faster. And that's holding. And when I say it's holding in the data, right? So there's 72 million Americans right now that do some form of independent work compared to 159 million full-time employees. If you go back 10 years ago, those numbers were nowhere close to that mix of independence.
That's staggering. I mean, that's almost a 60-40.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the number was increasing for gig, employees.
Right.
That suggests that companies need to almost rethink their workforce.
They absolutely do. I kind of think of it, I don't know that this is the best analogy, but I think it's a helpful one. Back in the mid late 2000s, there was this debate about should I have a proprietary IT? Should I do a private cloud? Should I do public cloud? Should I do a hybrid? I think we're doing the same thing that was done with technology that went from proprietary tech all the way over to public cloud and hybrid clouds. Most companies are operating hybrid clouds in some ways. What we're talking about here is you have a private cloud of human resource people that you use and capabilities you call on, and then you have public cloud. So you're operating a hybrid cloud human capital model, and that's where people need to go so that you can scale up and down very quickly and at the same time retain that permanent piece that you think is necessary in your business that you have.
It sounds like this could be done literally across most functions.
It absolutely can be. Yeah. I think one of the just change management challenges that you run into is normally it's full-time people that are being asked to embrace more independent work. Well, that's not where they really come from, right? So it's a change
Wait, what does
management
that
challenge.
mean?
Well, if you're a company and all you had was full-time employees, right? And you said, you know what, I think we should shift 10% of our workforce to be independent professionals. You're asking people who their knowledge of how you do work is to be a full-time employee to go embrace an independent contractor model for the workforce. It's just a change management undertaking. It's a mindset. Right? You say, well, why would I do that? The way you work is you go become a full-time employee because that's what I did. It's standard change management. And the innovative, I think that's one of the reasons that tech companies, the big tech companies, are good at it because they're always pushing the envelope on new models and new capabilities.
Yeah, as we start wrapping up, I'll tell you, you've kind of floated an interesting idea, and I'm not 100% sure I'm on board with it in the sense that I think it would add another layer of government. And as you can see, I don't like big government. I want smaller government, but I will say you kind of floated this idea of certified self-employed, the CSE.
Yeah.
This sounds like it's a certification process. Can you kind of walk us through what that would look
Yeah.
like at the state and federal
I'm,
level?
I'm going the opposite. I'm trying to reduce regulation by the certified self-employed.
Okay, well, I like the sound
Okay.
of that.
So
That
because
my first thought was that's more regulation. We don't want that.
no, it's actually the opposite because right now
Okay, good.
what the way it's structured in the social contract is we are holding companies accountable to be policing functions as to whether or not a worker is properly classified. What I'm saying is the company should have no responsibility for classifying the employee. The employee should be able to say, I'm smart enough to be a certified self-employed in the way I engage. It's very similar to what already exists as accredited investors. So if you're going to, you can say these are the criteria I meet. I understand the risk of being a retail investor in myself, and things are risky. And once you're an accredited investor, you can go invest in products. This is the same thing saying I understand that if I'm a self-employed person, I'm going to have to make quarterly estimated tax payments. I understand I need to have insurance. And once you certify that you understand that, then you can go be an independent contractor with any company, and the company's not obligated to enforce whether or not you comply with it. I'm eliminating regulation.
Okay, that's good because what happens is if someone decides to, oh, I don't know, spend their entire paycheck and never pay their quarterly taxes, there are some instances where the taxes then would revert back to the employer. And that's the fear, right? Is that they're not paying their taxes. Someone's got to pay the taxes. In this
Right.
case, it's clearly established that the CSE knows how to file
Correct. They
and
have
that
to
they do
take.
file.
Basically they would do a training course and take a test. And say, see, they're certified self-employed. They know what their obligations are. I mean,
Yeah.
we have all kinds of things. We give people driver's license because they take a test and go drive. You don't need somebody else to drive for it. I think the amount of regulation here in telling a human how they should contract to create the economic flow to feed their family is ridiculous. I think you should let the human choose, and that's what that certified self-employed is doing.
I see. Where are you in terms of pushing that through to become a reality more than just more of a, idealistically, this is what we'd like?
It's early days. I'm working with folks that are lobbyists around labor laws, et cetera. And we're looking at not looking we're approaching it at both the federal level but also the state level, because some states are more likely to embrace the idea than other states would be. And so we're taking what I refer to as the and strategy, not an or strategy. You approach the federal government, the Department of Labor, and how they should think about it and what we could do to make it easier for independents to do work. And then you also approach the states where you think you could get favorable support for it. And
Yeah,
we're doing
that's
that
great.
actively. But when you're changing regulation, there's nothing fast about that.
Oh, well, as soon as you say we're going to the Department of Labor, I mean,
Right.
that's a long-term strategy. But I like I like how it frames it. At least now everyone knows that that's really what you're attempting to accomplish by having someone on the platform is you, as the MBO partners, you're basically saying to the enterprise, these are certified self-employed.
Right.
I mean, that's apparently what you're helping the independent become, to show
That's right.
forth, and it eliminates that fear. What's the best way for people to reach out and talk to you and maybe sign up as an enterprise or as an independent?
Yeah, so you can Google my name, Miles Everson, or you can Google Freebirds Revolution. We got a website. I'm very findable, right? I'm on all the social media platforms. But if you just, I say Google, if you just whatever search engine you use, just search for me. I'm very, very accessible. I'll pop up right away.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I had no idea that Leonard Skinner got their name from their hard ass school teacher,
Right?
Leonard Skinner.
Right. That's
You
right.
learn something every day.
That is absolutely the case.
That was a good one. Miles, great talking to you again. I'm glad we were able to get this one down officially on film, as they were, because we've talked enough offline. I thought, let's share this with everybody so they can kind of see the trajectory, of the independent workforce. Appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tony. And hopefully some people get some nuggets out of this and get a better way of life. So that's,
if not, they can go pound sand and climb Kilimanjaro.
that's right.
All right. Until next time, we'll see everybody.